The Politics podcast is brought to you, as always, by patreon.com/JURY. That's where you can support this show. We are only 20 away from 500 patrons. Go ahead and join the club. It is where you can support not only this show, but also my One Mic podcast, Jury, where I answer your life questions. If you would like to do it, then go ahead there right now. Kick us in some change. Also, go ahead and get in on the Patreon club, because I'm going to be setting up a little Northeastern swing in April. If you would like to host a show where I come to your living room and do a show and other people gather in, then please go ahead and feel free to do that. But I'm going to send out the email on that to our patrons over the next week or so. So get in. In for a penny, in for a pound. Patreon.com/JURY. But enough of how we do the show. What do you say we just do the damn thing?
Politics, 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 politics. Yes.
Come on now. Are you ready for the politics? Yeah. Make them say, na 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 na. How you doing, guys? My name is Justin Robert Young. This is the Politics podcast. This is where we talk about micro machine collecting, Beanie Baby hoarding, Chili's enthusiasts. Just kidding. We talk about politics. A lot to talk about. Although I do want to say, this is probably our first down week, which is to say that for the first time, we're going to talk about a lot of stories that matter within politics, but are not necessarily front of teen vogue important, right? Travel ban. Oh my God, everybody's talking about it. Russian scandal. Oh my God, the president might be implicated in a foreign plot. But now we're back to politics stories. We're going to spend a fair amount of today's episode talking about the rise and fall of a controversial pundit. And yeah, we can do our best to stretch it into something that is intensely important, right? But we are doing work. Like let's understand that. You know, if you were to eliminate Milo, I can't pronounce his last name, from the face of the planet, the world would kind of keep spinning. It's only for people that are plugged into our particular sphere of interest that anybody gives a shit about this guy, right? Like that's you know, and a lot of people are writing his last name down there in the chat room, which I think is pronounced. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. I think it's pronounced. I can't pronounce his last name. But I'm not trying to troll or anything. I just can't pronounce his last name. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to Milo. We're going to get to Milo because indeed I believe he is going to get an award from this podcast. He is indeed. He has become a Politics award winner as the most Icarus-looking MRFer of the week. He indeed flew close to the sun on wings of wax, and much like the old parable goes, fell crashing back down to earth. We're going to get to that. But first, I want to talk about something a little bit more fun. I found my favorite candidate I want you guys to all meet him. I don't know how many of y'all live in Arizona. But I want to implore you. I don't know enough about him that I'm going to throw him my support, right? Or the support of this podcast. We don't really do a lot of endorsements on this podcast. In fact, the only endorsement that we have done on this show was for Rhino, the professional wrestler who was running for state senate in Michigan. But other than that, we don't really do a lot of that here. But I want you to please, if you live in Arizona, to take a good, hard look at Noe Dyer. That is Noah, Noah, Noe Dyer. Here's why. He's an Arizona gubernatorial candidate, and he's going to extreme lengths to back up his calls for openness in politics. How? Well, he's spilling the deets, folks. He's spilling the details on his own past, a past which includes group sex, sexting, and periods of homelessness. He is indeed a long shot campaign to run the Democratic nomination and unseat sitting Republican Governor Doug Ducey. But let me just give you an idea of how real no is. No means yes here on this podcast, okay? No keeps it 100 when others only perpetrate. He delivers. On his website, you can go under the heading Scandals and Controversy. Dyer lays out everything from his student loan debt, his divorce, his periods of homelessness, his use of credit card cash advances to pay tens of thousands of dollars in child support, and a colorful sexual history for which I will read for you right now. Quote, this is from the man's mouth. From the man's mouth himself. This is what he says. Noah has had both deep and casual sexual experiences with all kinds of women. He is an advocate of open relationships. He's had group sex and sex with married women. He has sent and received intimate texts and pictures, and occasionally recorded video during sex. Noah has always been forthright with his partners. Noah is unapologetic about his sexual choices and wishes others the same safety and confidence as they express themselves. He lists in his preferred reading books including The Ethical Slut, A Practical Guide to Polyamory, Open Relationships, and Other Adventures, as well as the kinky bestseller 50 Shades of Grey. He believes that politics is broken because politicians hide away from themselves these kinds of activities. And I, for one, I'll tell you what, no. I'm going to say no when it comes to hiding your freak flag instead of putting it as high as you can. I'm going to say no when it comes to politicians keeping themselves in their own proverbial closets only to have their worst enemies dig up those skeletons and throw it at them like it was some kind of second-rate haunted house. I'm gonna say no when it comes to not voting for Noah Dyer. That is commendable, my friend. We got to get him on the show. We got to get him on, right? Like, that's just got to happen. We gotta have him on here. We got to ask him some questions. I feel like this is definitely something that we gotta figure out, because he's okay. It might be Noe Dyer. Is it Noe Dyer? I don't know. We'll ask him when we have him on, because I'm all about it. If you are close to the Dyer campaign, let me know. I want Noah to know he is welcome on this show. We want to give him a platform. We want to let everybody know that he is running in a long shot campaign. But I mean, as much fun as we will have with this, and we are currently having, it does kind of bring something up. Are we in a post secrets world? Because let's go back to this election that just happened. You could make an argument that part of the reason why Donald Trump having the grabber and the pussy tape did less harm for him than Hillary Clinton's DNC email leaks, right? Or what seemed to be, at the very least, a very comfortable relationship, if not outright collusion between the Clinton campaign and the DNC, was that one was an abundance of awful information that was never thought to be anything but true and was discussed quite a bit. And the other was this drip, drip, drip feed where there was an unwillingness to talk about it. You know, if anything, there was a point where Donald Trump kind of kept getting, going on the offensive about his stuff with women. That it was almost like, all right, I'm just like, I know who he is. I am either emboldened by the stuff he is saying about stuff other than pussy grabbery or pussy grabbery. But he's not debating it. It is what it is. He writes it off as locker room talk. And it's like, now the enemies know, hey, he's a scumbag. He's a rapist. That's sexual assault. The supporters know, okay, he did that thing. That's gross. I'm uncomfortable talking about it, but he's more than that as a candidate for me. Whereas, even now, there's still just a lot of speculation about the Clinton campaign because the Clinton campaign came from a different world. And I'm not saying, like, again, let's separate exactly who they were and what they were running on. But there is a fundamental difference in opinion between the Trump campaign and the Clinton campaign when it comes to information. Donald Trump wants to throw as much information out there as possible because more information equals more headlines equals more free publicity. More free publicity means he has to spend less on campaign advertisements. Also, it seems fairly clear at this point that he believes that natural earned press coverage is more compelling than a campaign advertisement, even if it's negative. Meanwhile, the Clinton campaign, and this isn't just Hillary's campaign this time, it was also back in 2008, it was also Bill Clinton's campaigns, were founded on the idea of information management. And that's what Mr. Dyer seems to be trying to get around. He is saying, I'm going to have it on my website as early as possible. I'm in open relationships. Yeah, I've had sex with married women. Yeah, I've had sex with a lot of women. And if somebody sends a picture of my dong to the Arizona Sun Republic Journal Sentinel, then I'm going to be like, yeah, that's my dick. Because guess what I've done? Snip, snip. Taking a picture, got up on that iMessage, and sent a couple pictures of the old Leaning Tower. Because that's what I'm about. And this gives him some cover, right? Like if somebody shows him a picture of his wiener and says, is this your wiener? He'd be like, yeah, I talked about it on my website. Next question. Old news. It's a very interesting idea. And I think that part of, even if Donald Trump had not won, part of the fallout is that I think the idea of waiting for a scandal and trying to avoid it, perfect sailing, might have gone out of favor in politics, in favor of information overload. Now, I don't think everybody's going to go Noah's route when you get to the big leagues. And we are going to talk about the difference between the minor leagues and the big leagues when we get into this Milo thing in a second. But for where he is right now, as a long shot, let's say he does well. Let's say maybe next time he is in a better position to run. The fact that he ran with this on his website is interesting. Now, I don't know how serious he is. He's probably just a joke, but I am serious about having him on. Because there is a difference, man. There is a difference when you get to different stratas. It happens in politics. It happens in media. And man, did y'all see it this weekend? Did y'all see it? The shooting star. It was it actually started. It was a very rare astronomical event where this shooting star kind of started out blazing very brightly on Friday and then had completely disappeared from view by Monday afternoon. Just completely gone. Completely done. Completely. Finado. Over. Finished. Oh, to be Milo, I can't pronounce his last name on Friday. Things could not have gone better for him. No. No, he was there on Real Time with Bill Maher, and everything had broken the way that he had hoped it would. One of the panelists decided to not do the show in protest of Milo. Mean Mr. Milo. Bill Maher, the host of the show, came out and said, I will defend free speech. And if he is indeed the monster that you say he is, and he indeed says these horrible things, then there could be no better place than to have a good-spirited debate where we can denounce him and expose his ideas for the trifling nonsense that it truly is. Also, Bill Maher's like, homie, like, controversy equals cash, boy. I read that Bischoff book. So Milo comes on the show. And for at least half of the interview, it is a mutual admiration society between Bill Maher and Milo. Because they both want to pat each other on the back and say, oh, aren't we controversial characters? Aren't we rich patches on the quilt work of the American fabric? Oh, we are such delightful media personalities. Aren't we the real brave ones? Because we can reach across the aisle and with a firm handshake secure both of our places as total fucking attention whores. That's great for Milo. Because he has operated in a very, very, very fractious, chaotic place in the minor leagues. All he really had to do was please those that were already kind of fans of his. Which is why he, like I mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago, is there just to drill into liberal America and watch money pour out. And to that point, he got exactly what he wanted in the afterword. It was called After Time. This is the post-show itself discussion between the panelists and the interview guest, which in this case was Milo. And so they got one Republican there. The Republican is very complimentary of Milo. Boo. Milo doesn't want anything to do with that. You can't drill a hole in him and have money come out. He's being too nice. Fine. So then he goes to Larry Wilmore. Sweet, sweet Larry Wilmore. And Larry Wilmore just does exactly what Milo wants him to do. Milo says something typically horrifying about, like, transgendered people having a mental disease and being sexual predators. And Larry Wilmore says, stop. He smells it. He's got it in his, he's like a shark that smells blood. He has it right in front of him, and he knows that it's bad for him, but he can't help it. And he says, stop. Number one, go fuck yourself. And boy, that crowd, I'll tell you what, there are fewer cheap pops in the entertainment industry. You have a concert act walking out on stage and yelling the name of the town they're in. And then there's a liberal commentator yelling at a conservative commentator on Real Time with Bill Maher. No more surefire jump up and down, Road Warriors pop, Stone Cold's glass breaking in 1998, excitement permeating that building than when Larry Wilmore tells Milo, I can't pronounce his last name, to shut the F up. I think he's, more specifically, I don't want to misquote the man, says to go F himself. Which, of course, is exactly what Milo wants. Milo just wants to be able to cut that up and show, oh, look how scared the liberals are. All I do is go out there and try to have a conversation, and what a coarsening of language we have, as immediately it has to resort in profanity for them. And if you have eagle eyes, this is where that comet in the sky, that shooting star, burned its brightest. You could see it. Maybe it had a J.J. Abrams lens flare coming off of it. Oh. Because it was at that point, after Milo had everything that he wanted, he started to go in on the next panelist as well. And Bill Maher. And please understand this. I don't agree with Bill Maher on a lot. But Bill Maher very astutely points out to Milo, this is the beginning of your career. You have plenty of decades for people to hate you. He even bestows upon him a tremendous, and I think unearned, compliment. Which is, he says he looks at Milo and sees a younger, gay Christopher Hitchens. Now, this is wrong on two levels. Number one, it would be gayer Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens was famously bi. And number two, Milo does not write near as much or near as well as Christopher Hitchens, who is indeed one of the greatest polemicists of his or any other era, a brilliant thinker. And if you think that you agree with Christopher Hitchens, you simply have not read enough Christopher Hitchens. He made sure that you disagreed with him, and he made sure to tear your opinion to shreds. He is an intellectual titan on the level that Milo, I can't pronounce his last name, simply is not. But the fact that Bill Maher paid him that compliment is certainly something that should be recognized, because Bill Maher has certainly played the game of political punditry for a very, very, very long time and has seen it from a lot of different angles. His perspective on Christopher Hitchens is something that should be understood and respected. And for him to pay that compliment to him does, I think, mean something. But, and here, ladies and gentlemen, is where the worm turns. But you gotta let, this is Maher to Milo, you gotta let people come to you. Because if all you do is call people stupid and call people idiots and ridicule their opinions before they hear you, then you're not gonna go very far. And if I can extrapolate on that idea, I believe what Maher is trying to say is, homie, this is pro wrestling. And you can always go back to your hometown fans and say, yeah, I beat him. But you got to have the give and take. It can't all just be napalm. It can't all just be a flamethrower. Because at a certain point, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be interesting. You're not going to get booked. You're going to make enemies. And man, from that height, look above. Why, you can see Milo Icarus flying toward the sun of legitimate mainstream media. The next day, it is announced he's going to speak at CPAC, the conservative conference du jour. This is the big leagues when it comes to conservative speakers. The headliners at that exact same conference are Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon, the former head of Breitbart, where Milo has gotten his start. People are actually writing out a phonetic version of how to pronounce his last name. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced I can't pronounce his last name. I don't know. I'm not sure. Which is when it all goes wrong. Which is when I can only assume floating, flying, soaring up toward that golden orb is when he felt the structural integrity of the wings that had carried him thus far begin to melt. A conservative Twitter account called the Reagan Battalion, one that has become very, very anti-Trump, and now with CPAC on the horizon is certainly continuing to stake out their battle positions, releases a video that edits together some lesser known, some rare Milo, wherein he says a few fairly controversial things. He says that when young boys in school, have sex with their older teachers, it is the women that are the aggressors. He makes some questions about the age of consent. And this is the big one, makes reference to relationships in the homosexual community where older men become romantically and sexually involved with younger boys. And in his words, can have a positive effect on their lives, can make them feel better about who they are, can nurture them on a certain level. Now, I'll link this clip so you can watch it. I mean, I'm not going to play it, but you can paraphrase it for yourself. I'm paraphrasing it, but I don't think I'm being unfair. And so now there is the question for Milo, attacker of the liberal agenda, defender of conservative principles, confounder of modern orthodoxy, being the big gay icon, poster boy, rightly or wrongly, for the alt-right. Debate amongst yourselves. Now there is the line that cannot be crossed. Milo defends pedophilia. Now what he tries to make the argument of is it's not pedophilia, it's pederasty. And as a friend of mine who I was discussing this with made a very, very valuable point, man, if the next thing out of your mouth is, let me explain to you the difference between pedophilia and pederasty, you might just want to put the mic down and walk away. You might just want to call it a day. If you ever find yourself saying Oh, no, I'm not talking about pedophilia. I'm talking about you want to know what? I'm just going to take a nap. I'm just going to leave. I'm just, you know what? Tapping out on this. I'm just going to head to the Winchester, catch a pint, and wait for this to all blow over because I am not putting my name on wax, going ahead and getting into the dirty, gritty details of what the difference between a pedophile and a pederast is. Wing, ding, diddly, ding, dong, do. I'm going to leave for now. And then you throw down a ninja smoke bomb and you get the hot hell out of there. It's a no-win position. I'll tell you what, if they ever redo Star Trek again, the Kobayashi Maru should literally just be the Starfleet Academy telling Kirk, all right, Starfleet cadet, now you have to explain the difference between pedophile and pederast. Go! The only way to win is not to play. But it puts Milo in a very, 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 very contentious position. Because now he's got stakes. He's got stakes on a level that he never really had before. Him speaking at CPAC and being on Bill Maher was his introduction to the big leagues. This is where he becomes a bigger, more plugged in, and more relevant version of Ann Coulter. Somebody who has made a living doing this. As a professional, this is a big moment for him. But his problem is, his brand is I never back down, I never apologize. So what do you do now, homeboy? What do you do now? Now that you got this on your plate, you never back down, you never apologize. How do you handle it? Well, first it starts getting handled for him. CPAC drops him. Next thing you know, that $250,000 book deal that he got from Simon & Schuster, yeah, gone. The final indignation, the platform for which brought him more fame than he ever had. Breitbart. Call it what you want. He left. He was fired. There were rumors that he was being let go. He releases a statement and says, this is totally on my own accord. I can tell you this. He didn't want to have to leave his job the day after he got his book canceled and his speaking engagement at CPAC knocked off. There was pressure for him to GTFO. Breitbart! Breitbart's like, listen, man, the heat's too hot here. Literally, we are a farm for clickbait. We are bringing the hottest of hot takes for the right. This is the final frontier for the most controversial conservative talk you could possibly find, but yipes, Esty Rapes, you gotta hit the bricks, son. And don't let the pearls hit your ass on the way out. I mean, quite simply, to use just one more wrestling cliche, the big leagues broke his back and made him humble. Who knows where he goes from here? Because he had to take a big, fat series of L's over this last week. And he seems like a fairly compelling enough person that he will always have a following on the right. But, you know, there's the difference. I said before, when everybody, was talking about, oh, well, I don't want to have to pay attention to him, yada, yada, yada. There are plenty of people on the right. I mean, listen, Buchanan still writes books. Michael Savage still writes books. There's plenty of people on conservative talk radio that are speaking to a right-wing audience that they make a living. They do well. But they're not mainstream. They're not mainstream critics. In fact, aside from ex-politicians, really the only mainstream conservative critic is Ann Coulter, right? Who else? Who else are we even talking about? I can't name one off the top of my head. I mean, unless they're just on Fox News, but even then, they're not necessarily mainstream. Is Tucker Carlson mainstream? He might be. They don't really exist, is what I'm saying. O'Reilly? But really, is O'Reilly? I mean, O'Reilly's mainstream, I guess, because he is the biggest person on the biggest platform. But he speaks to the faithful. I would put Hannity below that. Because I don't, I mean, Hannity can write books. I guess, yeah, Hannity's mainstream. But really, that's where you have to be. You've got to be 10 years on at the biggest right-wing platform for this to be a thing. So this is just, I don't know how much more there is to say about this. And again, this shows you that this was a bit of a down week, that we're going to talk about the life and death of Milo. I can't pronounce his last name. I think he'll be back. But man, that dude cut some L's. That dude got some serious L action. Dude, that dude's favorite fucking magazine is L. I'm just saying, I can't think of any other jokes. Okay, let's move on. Of course, the deputy here got me a bunch of other. We're gonna do a little roundup here. Apparently, Donald Trump is having difficulty fulfilling his cabinet. I mean, of course he is. Why wouldn't he have a hard time filling his cabinet? He doesn't have a squad. He doesn't have people. He's fired his leader. He fired his leadership 3 times during the campaign. His leadership is trying to knife each other. They're all, by 6 o'clock every single day, there's probably a recreation of the Beat It video. Where Bannon and Reince Priebus are tying their arms together and trying to hit each other with switchblades. Like, of course he's going to have a hard time finding his cabinet. He's in a controversial presidency, and he ain't got no loyalty going back with people who have been in these positions for a long time. That shouldn't necessarily be too much of a surprise. Meanwhile, John McCain is, he got a little fired up. John McCain famously said during his 2004 campaign that his base was the media. And so now he stuck up for him, despite the fact that he got fricasseed in 2008. Here's the quote from McCain. "This is how dictators get started when it comes to Trump's handling of the media and his quickness to declare fake news." I'm not going to really talk shit on John McCain. I like John McCain. I got one more question that I want to ask you. I got one more question. In the wake of Trump, what other rich people are we gonna see? What other rich people are we gonna see run for president in 2020? Because you gotta figure we're gonna see some rich people. Donald Trump just doesn't get to be president, and then all of a sudden rich people are like, no, I'm definitely not running. You gotta figure there are people who are rich as hell around the world that are currently looking at Donald Trump and saying, him? It's like Arrested Development. Him? Her? So I got a list. I want to see if I can get some action on this. Is it illegal? Does it violate the Twitch TOS for me to bet with my own money on things? Is betting with my own money against the Twitch TOS? I'm curious. Because I want some odds. I want some odds on the following name. I'm willing to spread some cash on him. Here's my top 3 people who are going to run. Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban showed up at the NBA All-Star Game with the number 46. 46. Why 46? Because the next president would be the 46th president. And you could also say that this was a troll because apparently him and Trump have had a contentious relationship. Trump tweeted out that, Mark Cuban is not smart enough to be president. But you kind of wonder if he's going to run. I don't think so. I don't think he's going to run. I think that ultimately Mark Cuban likes his life. Mark Cuban likes his life a lot, right? He gets to hang out with NBA players and go clubbing. Go ahead and read that read that piece about him and Chandler Parsons. There's a thing on ESPN. It was great. But that dude, man, you gotta know. Mark Cuban is about that life. Donald Trump, listen, he's an older guy. All he does is hang around and he used to get so bored he would just make random videos from his office, right? He likes staying relevant. He likes golfing. Kind of slide right into the presidency with that kind of lifestyle. You can't really do that if you're Mark Cuban and you're too busy doing, chopping lines with Dana White, right? That's a problem. Bloomberg. What about that one? Bloomberg. He has been teasing the nation that he's going to run forever. That dude has been, in perpetual, I'm about to run for president mode. That's just a thing. But I don't know. Maybe, does Trump winning make him less likely? Do we want yet another New York luminary running? Maybe. Here's the one that I will almost guarantee will at some point run for president. And really my only question, and I'm trying to remember this, how old do you got to be to run for president? 42? You have to attain the age of 35. 35 years. Right now, Mark Zuckerberg is 32 years old. 32 years old. And that dude is already running for president. That dude went on a vacation to Alabama with his wife. Went to local newspapers and thanked them for their service. There was a picture of him walking out of a small town newspaper. Oh, there's a rustic little sign hanging from the top. It's just swinging. You can imagine that there's an old ink-stained wretch in there who's got a little pencil behind. I'm sure he lays out the newspaper on paste-up board still, and he's just like, Martha, did you get the City Hall notes? We got to make sure they make the evening edition. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Hi, I'm Mark Zuckerberg. Well, what do you do? Do you run the shop up there in Montgomery? No, I run Facebook. The what? The Facebook. The what? The Facebook. Okay, very nice. Move along. We got to make sure that we get things out for the morning edition. Mark Zuckerberg's going to run for president. I need odds. Someone get Patty Power on the phone, man. I want someone to take me some long odds. I want to make some money on this from the time he announces that he's running for president. I'm in for this. I will bet $100 that Mark Zuckerberg is running for president. I need to bet it. I need to bet it right now. Can somebody find me some odds? I need odds. I want, this has got to be a value pick, right? The question isn't whether or not you're going to vote for him. The question is whether or not he is going to run. I am all in on this. I think he's definitely going to go. I'll tell you what, though. One thing that is for sure is that we're going to have to figure out who we trust. Real friends. How many of us? How many of us have them? I don't know who to trust, man. I don't think the American people do either, but we're gonna try and come together. Because if there's one thing we can agree on, it's some good old-fashioned statistical sampling, a numbers-based view into our opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a...
Get on the floor if you got that booty.
Dance, 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 dance. Come on, dance, dance.
That booty.
This is a Fox News poll. Who do you trust more? The President of the United States, Donald Trump, or the media? .45% of voters said that they tell the White House, they trust the White House to tell the truth. While only 42% of the voters could say the same about the news media. Meanwhile, they also said that 68% of voters believe that the media has been tougher on Trump than President Obama. And only 18% of responders believe that the media has been giving Donald Trump an easier time.
Get on the floor if you got that booty.
Also, 55% believe that the media should cover the president aggressively, while 28% think it's better to give the commander-in-chief the benefit of the doubt. Okay. See, this is why we're never going to get over this. This is why this is going to be a forever problem for us. Because look at these numbers, all right? So they barely trust an unpopular president over the media because everybody hates the media. Liberals, conservatives, it's really the only thing that they can get along with. That they hate the media for different reasons. They also believe that Donald Trump is being covered more aggressively. They also agree that he should be covered more aggressively. So what is the media supposed to do? They're less popular for covering him aggressively, while all anybody wants is for them to cover him aggressively. Like, nobody is rougher on the media than this show, right? That's all we do is talk about how we're obsessed with how they're obsessed about themselves. That's just what this is, right? But at the same time, the media is such a useless phrase because it is such a large entity comprised of so many diverse people that the idea that it's, no, screw you, you're lying because you're covering the president too aggressively. Also, we recognize that you're covering him too aggressively. Also, please cover him aggressively. Come on. Come on. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Folks, you can email TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com. Again, that is TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com. We got a bunch of really, 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 really good ones here. Let's go ahead and begin here with Chris. Hey, jury, in the after show, you mentioned that there are alternative sets of facts. That's what I said. So in the whole alternative facts things, I mentioned that there can be alternative sets of facts. If you have a fact, I left my oven on and my house burned down while I was out of the house. That's a fact. You did leave your oven on and your house did burn down. I could then say, I threw a Molotov cocktail in your window and your house burned down. That's also an alternative set of facts. Both can be true. One can be more illuminating than the other, which is what we should focus on and effort toward. But the idea of saying that there is only one truth is, in my mind, problematic. We go back to Chris's email. I'd like to share with your listeners my favorite duo of facts that help explain why Trump won and shines a light on media bias. Here are charts from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis citing the U.S. Bureau of Labor data. Effectively, what he's pointing out is under Obama, employment fell after the Great Recession, yet labor participation also fell during the same time period. Alternative facts. While the dutiful mainstream media would headline the unemployment rate, rapscallions such as Drudge, Zero Hedge, and Steve Bannon's Breitbart would concentrate on participation rate. There's many an argument to be made about whether unemployment or participation is a better measure, but they are both imperfect. However, if you believe in James Carville's maxim of "it's the economy, stupid," what does the Midwest swinging to Trump tell us of the mainstream media's focus on the rosy unemployment rate? That maybe they believed the participation rate more. Listen, man, I'm not here to give you the conservative version of what the world is. I'm just saying there's a lot of ways to look at it. Renegade writes, I've been following the show since a few months before the U.S. election, and this is my first email, as I've never really had something to contribute to America or South Korean politics. Yeah, we didn't have a South Korean update. Sorry, guys. He says, but F word, jury. How can you possibly be neutral in all of this? I'm very curious about this whole neutral thing again. Anyway, in my country, the Netherlands, has an election coming up in 4 weeks, and I think it's a fun way to explore why the white man with blondish hair and a weird cut is highly disrupting over here, but is never going to get elected to the highest office. Major reason, we have no direct presidential, prime minister, god king, or regular king election. Governments will generally be formed by multiple parties gaining 50% plus one seats. Oh, and we have multi-party systems. While the U.S. has looked to an electoral college to prevent an overly populist government, we seem to have figured out that extreme fragmentation in a proportional representative system is the way. That means there are now 28 parties on the ballots, of which as many as 10 are heading for certain, are almost certain to have seats, according to the latest polls. I can have the choice between 4 flavors of xenophobia, 4 flavors of Euroscepticism, and even 1 flavor of out-and-out anti-Semitism, although the party's sole candidate is in jail now. His holy blondness, Supreme Leader Geert Wilders, is our Trump equivalent, and his aptly named Freedom Party is currently leading in the polls. But the lead is only 17% of the votes. Kind of sounds like Trump. Tradition dictates that the biggest party will get the lead in trying to form a coalition, but Geert Wilders' extreme politics resulted in exclusion from nearly all parties. Almost like a cordon sanitaire. I'm not sure how international a term that is, but it sounds French, so it probably is. I have no idea what that means. Anyway, despite having an extreme right-wing party leading in the polls to disrupt politics, not all is lost. In our multi-party system, no government strays far from the middle, and in the most recent polls, even the moderate left coalition is possible, despite our once great Labor Party losing most of its electorate to the extreme white. Anyways, America, go ahead and ditch that first past the post as fast as you can. Life is great in a country more democratic than you. I get to weigh in my choice between 3 parties I like, not pick between 2 evils I hate. That is Ren Agu. Let me just go ahead and do me a favor. just going to look up the Netherlands population. Yeah, the Netherlands population. 17 million. Huh. 17 million. Let me just look up Texas population. Population 2016. Huh. Population of Texas is 28 million. You know, so I think half of Texas should try this out. Half of Texas. Just saying. It's a good solution for 17 million. Might not scale. Not all solutions scale. That's always, whenever in the Europeans always get up in here with their like, oh, look at us, we got this thing. I mean, it's the big leagues, right? Big league solutions. We need big league solutions. Thank you so much for writing in. Ben writes, do you think that Evan McMullen is a Dead Kennedys fan? He points out this tweet here. This is a tweet where somebody says, $250,000 was spent on opposition research on Milo, hired private investigators and video editors. Evan McMuffin involvement confirmed. Evan McMullen says, I never cared much for Nazi punks, which is, of course, a line from the Dead Kennedys. Keith Law writes, I know a great song about them. He says, I do too. Somebody else comes in and says, is this a punk rock thread? Evan McMullen says, yes, it is. We go back to Ben's email. SLC punk for president. As a socialist from Canada and a Bernie supporter, I would have been okay with him backdooring his way into elected office. T2 from Estonia says, how about that EU parliamentary system? I mean, again, not all solutions are great, even the big ones. Thaddeus writes, I decided to write in this week. The left should be trying to copy what the right did 8 years ago because it worked for the right. They neutered Obama for 6 of the 8 years, gained control of most state legislatures, and gained control of both houses of Congress. They're going to take control of the Supreme Court sometime in the next 4 years, and the Republican Party has shifted ideologically to be more right-wing. The left should be trying to copy the right's tactics, and then maybe in 8 years we can control every branch of government and have a populist leftist president in the White House. I mean, if you want to do that, part of what the Tea Party did was try to purge people from within their own party. That would be the next step if you wanted to copy the Tea Party's playbook. Scott writes, I love your idea of ignoring Milo, but I can't. I want to see him as nothing more than an unfunny, twink version of Andrew Dice Clay. You're right that he makes a living as an internet troll who gets off on saying outlandish things in outlandish ways to piss people off so we can tell them how wrong they are about being pissed off. But I ignored Breitbart and I ignored Trump for those same reasons, and now Trump and Bannon are in the effing White House. So that obviously didn't work. I'm not sure what to do. I can't ignore him because there's a large amount of people who take his ideas to heart. Otherwise, why would he have been the keynote speaker for the CPAC conference? He wasn't a keynote speaker, to be clear. He was a speaker. But I don't want to give him any attention either. I can't ban him from talking, nor do I want to. And I can't ignore him. I don't want to give him more attention. I need another option. Maybe because PPP listeners can't help. By the way, I've been giving some thought to giving us liberals a nickname after the election. How about Eeyore, since we're all a bunch of sad jackasses? Thanks. I mean, I don't think I can say Eeyores or else it's going to come off as making fun, right? Here we go. Angry email of the week comes from Hobbs Dog. All right, hold on. Let me get in my angry email voice. Angry email. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. Rant time about you not giving a shit about Kellyanne Conway. For someone who claims to have been a journalist, you seem to broadly miss the story here about Conway. The point is not about spin. You are spot on with that. The job of a PR person is to spin, take or extract parts wanted or needed to refocus away from the issue at hand that may be negative. But she is far beyond this. This is not Clinton spinning about cigars by saying, what about people who need jobs? This is equivalent to Clinton saying, I did not have sex with that woman, but then multiplied. Kellyanne is his PR person making shit up whole cloth, manufacturing lies, enforcing lies, and creating events a la the Bowling Green massacre. I was killed twice in that massacre, and it was brutal. That is the focus of the hubbub about her, not the spin, which you said she does great, but the bullshit creation of news. Remember to send your angry emails to TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com. TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com. I will read at least one angry email a week. Let's get to something that a lot of people emailed in on, which is which media represents you? When you read this media, do you think, okay, these are people working for my interests? Got a bunch of these, so I'm going to read them off rapid fire. Dave writes, as a 35-year-old male who leads conservative, I feel like Fox, for the most part, represents my views. I know they have a hard-right bias, but they seem to be honest about it. Carmican writes, I personally identify politically as a non-authoritarian or egalitarian leftist, and I don't feel like any of the networks or even newspapers represent my views at all. Too much tribalism and too many double standards. Kay writes, for me, it's the BBC. To get my rounded news, I use CNN, Fox News, BBC, and at times the AP. Mix it all together, and you get a good dose of reality. Paul writes, I'd say the New York Times and to a lesser extent the Washington Post represent me. Not in a we're a U.S. News and World Report household, no child of mine is ever going to read Newsweek sort of way, but in a more general quality, content, and tone sense. Regardless of party, nothing drives me up a wall faster than my friends, family, and Facebook making incorrect statements with total confidence in their legitimacy. I found over many years that these two sources are mostly well-researched and often report in an objective manner. And Corey finally writes, I find NPR represents me. I'm very curious about this, so go ahead and keep sending these in. Which media represents you? Because I want to get a sense of it. Because like I said last week, you, like, who is it? Carmican, might think that none of them represent you. But Carmican, I'm telling you right now that all of them believe they represent you. And they believe that their relationship to you is you like a baby bird waiting for the fruits of their labor. That you're just waiting there to hear the truth that they are bringing to you. And finally, the Bishma writes that this presidential election was my fifth since turning 18 back in 1997. But I also have a terrible memory. So when you said protest and the Republican comments that they're paid protesters reminded you of 2008, I didn't remember those claims from the heady days, specifically when they were called paid protesters. So I did some Google searches, time limited, from January 1st, 2009, and nothing was able to, from January 1st, 2009 to June 1st, 2009, and I wasn't able to turn anything up. As someone who is trying to personally back friends and family away from the 180-degree rhetoric, liberals complaining about all the same things conservatives complained about for the last 8 years and vice versa, I'd very much appreciate any details you might be able to give me that can just back me up from some articles on the time. I'm so sick of the blind partisanship and confirmation bias. Allow me to help you out. Yeah, I'll juice you up. Cable guy reference. Go ahead and just Google Tea Party AstroTurf. Tea Party AstroTurf. That's what you want to look up. Those are your keywords. Because that was the phrasing that was used, that the Tea Party was not a grassroots movement. It was instead paid and organized by the Koch brothers. and that it was using. So it was a slightly different argument in that I think at its most reductive, the conservative argument to the protests that are happening now is that they are paid for, that everybody's collecting a check from George Soros. But more so, what I think the conservative argument is similar to what was being said about the Tea Party. Is that, yeah, there are people there on their own volition, but there are people that are organizing these that are on the dole from very rich liberal people like George Soros. And that very much reminds me of the AstroTurf conversation that was happening about the Tea Party. That the Tea Party was not a grassroots organization. They were being set up. So just go ahead and Google Tea Party AstroTurf. That's what you want. That's what you want. Anyway, tell you what, you can email TheYoungAmerican at gmail.com. You can buy The Contender at thecontender.us. Music has been provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. Of course, you can follow me at Justin R. Young everywhere that you have a social media account. Tell you what, yell at me. Give me your angry emails on Snapchat at Justin R. Young. Just yell at me. I'll talk to you. I love talking to everybody on Snapchat. Download archived episodes of this show at bonerwars.com. Remember, some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. Still more talk about politics, but this is the only show that talks about all three. Until next time, I will see you later.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.